It's my distinct pleasure to be able to introduce our valedictorian this morning. This cadet has made us quite proud, and in the fall, we'll be attending the Massachusetts Institute of Technology with an ROTC scholarship in excess of $200,000. We are quite proud of Cadet Noelle Kramer.
For those of you who know me, you know that I love to talk, and for anybody that has heard me talk, unfortunately, you might be familiar with my tendency to ramble through loosely connected tangents in my effort to spin together a coherent story that often takes about 10 times as long for me to tell than the average bear. Fortunately, for those who are familiar with my long-winded habits, know these two things. First, this speech was proofread and revised multiple times by the esteemed deans of our school, hopefully providing one well-put-together, tangentless story at the end of it. Second, a time limit has at last been imposed upon my musings, so for those of you who are itching to arrive at the end of your suffering, I'm to take no longer than 10 minutes. Start your timers. To the 10 students at RMA who actually check their emails, you would be familiar with the ever-important daily announcements from Ms. Bennett. What you wouldn't have experience with, however, are the emails that I receive even more frequently from one other RMA faculty member. Several times daily, I'm bombarded with articles and blog posts from colleges, college students, college-bound students' parents, the list goes on. Now, some of you might be thinking that this is bordering more along the lines of anxious parent than helpful teacher. To those of you who are, I would say, you're right. Dad, I just want to let you know that I didn't read a single one of your emails. When sitting down to write this speech, however, I was confronted with a feeling that I know all too well from assignments in my 6 English classes throughout high school. I didn't have an instruction manual. So, much to my chagrin, I revived one of his emails from the dregs of my trash folder, an article titled, "How to Write a Graduation Speech as Valedictorian." In other words, my graduation cheat sheet. The first step, the article claims, is to understand the goal. Now, I don't know about you all, but I think that if every future college student understood their goal, Chief Gamache might be out of a job. Because while some of you might be certain of your ultimate pursuit in life, even the most determined of minds are destined to change. But that's the point, isn't it? Go off to college and learn how to understand your goal. Maybe you find that you really, really like physics, and you only disliked it in high school because of the grueling, tear-inducing AP physics class you unwisely took in your senior year, although I, for one, am doubtful. So, I'd like to revise that statement. If you don't understand your goal now, that's okay. That's what the next years of your life are for. But be sure that while you seek to know your purpose, you never forget to understand yourself. Listen to what your own interests are, and know that a change of heart is never a failure. The second step to writing the perfect valedictory address is to compile a list of highlights. After 4 years at RMA, there seem to be almost too many to choose from, but I think I've narrowed it down to some of the best. I'll never forget my first day at RMA, fresh-faced and full of hope, blissfully not hearing the inquisitive whispers about whether my questionable haircut meant I was a Falcon Scholar or a nematode. Nor will I forget my favorite teacher of freshman year, Mr. Davies, whose class would soon be not so affectionately dubbed Honors English Picnic for the large quantities of food our class would proudly display on our desks in the middle of every lesson. And Mr. Richards will never let the percussion section forget the one time we forgot the quad harnesses before Apple Blossom, and General Wesley made an emergency trip back to the band room to retrieve it. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the wealth of 3 a.m. fire drills the boys' dorms experienced that I never stopped hearing about. Of course, one of my personal favorites was learning that I could almost always bribe Mr. Barr out of a late-to-class demerit, so long as I came prepared with baked goods. On that note, Mr. Barr, you've inspired me to present a few things to my teachers. Just for you all, I have prepared my world-famous apology cupcakes. Daryl, you should be familiar with those. So first, I'd like to give one to Dr. Moranto. I'm sorry that I didn't tell you right away that I got into MIT, and I'm sorry that I decided to go to school on the better side of Cambridge. I just really didn't want to come out of college addicted to sweater vests and khakis. Next, to Dr. Bird. I'm sorry that I was always late to your class. It's far away, and I have short legs and poor time management skills. To Chaplain Orndorff, I'm sorry that the cake I made ended up being more of a UNC color than Duke blue. Maybe that's why they didn't win the championship. To Mr. D'Amato, I'm sorry for putting my breakfast sandwiches on top of the timpani drums. I swear I didn't get any food particles on them. Mr. Richards, I'm sorry for messing around in the percussion section, but I'm even more sorry that you missed about 90% of what we did. It was pretty entertaining. To Mr. Sloan and Colonel Casarino, who's unfortunately not here today, I'm sorry for setting the record in both of your classes for latest assignment ever submitted by a student. To Ms. Schoonover, I'm sorry I didn't label that cake in the teacher's lounge as not for teachers. Next time I'll put 2 cakes in there so you don't have to feel left out. In the meantime, think of this cupcake as your own personal cake. Lastly, to Mr. Barr, I have nothing to apologize for. So this is instead for your consideration when you decide to go back and adjust my final grade to at least a 95. Of course, life isn't always made up of highlights. At the end of the year, it becomes all too easy to reminisce about the good times and sunny weather. But those are not the most important memories to carry into the future, for no one's ever learned from having it easy. In fact, I firmly believe that the best achievements and the most worthwhile outcomes are only gained through the hardest of struggles. Yes, I stand before you all today as the valedictorian of the class of 2019. And yes, I'll be going to MIT next year. But those tremendous rewards didn't come without the expense of tremendous effort. And while the expression blood, sweat, and tears might not be entirely applicable here, there were certainly many sleepless nights, arguments had, and tears shed to get to where I am today. During the second semester of my senior year, I entered my first ever struggle with my own mental health. I forgot who I was and why I wanted to achieve in the first place. I didn't care about my schoolwork, my health, my friends. All I could manage to do when I got home was sleep or watch Netflix. Naturally, my grades suffered as a consequence. As a nearly straight-A student for my entire high school career, at the end of my third quarter, I was suddenly faced with an F in English. But here's the thing about depression. It whispers in your mind that your failures are because you're not good enough, or that your lack of motivation is because you never had any to begin with. At my worst, Colonel Jones sat down with me and looked me in the eye and told me that I had changed. But depression told me that I had always been a fraud. I only got A's because the work was easy, and now my years of not trying were catching up to me. And I sat across from him and looked him in the eye, and I laughed, because I thought that no one could see who I truly was, when it was my own reflection that was clouded. Of course, to anyone who couldn't see my grades, I seemed just as nonchalant and carefree as ever, making jokes in band and having fun on weekend trips. I was affected most in my schoolwork and in my classes, where I no longer raised my hand to answer questions, I didn't do homework, or least of all pay attention. Rather than aiming for success, I instead aimed for constant distraction throughout the school day, provided by games or TV shows on my laptop. Despite the excuses, however, at the end of the day, it doesn't seem right to have a valedictorian who suffered an F in English represent the standard of academic excellence. And that's what the deans confronted me with a month ago when they realized the severity of my lack of effort. As the valedictorian, I should be the personification of high academic standards and continued excellence. It was a tough decision for the deans to make to allow me to stand before you all today, when my senior year really hasn't been representative of those standards. But fortunately, I was able to prove to the deans that my senior year has been the representative of one other key value to RMA, grit. Wouldn't it make a great valedictorian speech, I argued, to be able to chronicle the struggles of my senior year and how I overcame those challenges? Wouldn't it be a message everyone could learn from, to see that the mighty fall and crawl, but the mightiest are those who pick themselves up off the ground and eventually begin to walk again? And that's what I did. After running for miles and miles with the wind at my heels, I tripped and I fell when I was yards away from the finish line. But it was only through the love and the support that I've found here at RMA that I was able to pick myself up off the ground and make my way across to the end. So, to those who helped me along the way, Mom and Dad, Mara, Chaplain Orndorff, Mrs. Schoonover, my friends in band, and my friends who aren't here today, thank you all for being my ground to stand on when my own rock was crumbling beneath my feet. The last step to writing the perfect valedictorian speech is, of course, preparing to speak. And as you all walk out of the gym here today, that's what I encourage you to do. Prepare to speak, prepare to deliver, prepare to share with the world who you are and let yourself be known. Because despite your struggles, despite your hesitations, despite your fears, you are someone who is worth sharing with the world, even on the days that you tell yourself you're not. So, go out in the world and demand that you be known for all you're worth. It's okay if you don't understand your goal yet. It's okay if not every day, every moment is a highlight. Know that the one true way to prove yourself and to grow is to allow yourself to fall. But also know that the growth comes not from the fall, but from picking yourself back up again. And lastly, I leave you with this. Always read your parents' emails. Thank you.